Hello and welcome on board this flight to the after party. My name is No White Guilt, and I am your in-flight service director. Your ace pilot is Jared George of the Great Order. Yes, he did pull off Pukachev's Cobra in a T-38 last week, and no, he won't be performing that adroit maneuver today, as we do not have enough airsick bags. Bit of a mess, you see. If you would like to watch any of my videos on the back of the seat in front of you, be sure to use a VPN. I'd like to direct your attention to those sitting in first class and appearing on the airline's honors roll call today. We have Richard, Ryan, Silas Council, Spartan Warrior Queen, our very own, Saint McFreeman, Stephen, Trent, and we have Bob, Gregory, and Scott, Wayne, Evillian, Emily, Matthew, Cassius, Mobile Scotty. A special thank you to Roy Danton, Michigan Wave, Steven, Mr. Cole, DB Cooper, Happy Cat, Shaxor, and a special thanks to Charlie. I and White Wellbeing Airlines honor you for your commitment to white well-being and your willingness to act on those convictions. You all will be receiving the soft pillows. If you are sitting in an evacuation aisle, I direct your attention to the card on the seat in front of you, where you will read about the Super Chat crown winners of the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, the crown went to Luke for investing a total of 75 Save Our People, damn it, dollars. Whistles and bravos to you, good sir. And second place was Roy Danton, investing $60. Congratulations and a big thanks to you as well, my good friend. For the Super Chat crown winner of last week, the crown goes to Lawrence for investing 50 Keep It White dollars. Whistles and bravos to you as well, good sir. And in second place was yours and mine, Drunk Uncle, investing $28. Congratulations and a warm thank you to you as well, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats during takeoff. Even if you have to super chat, you can hold it. But once the flight is underway, you may super chat on YouTube at 33%, on Entropy at 15%, where you can also watch the stream, ask and vote on questions, and participate in any polls I post. Or you can scalpel your way down into the video's description for a familiar alternative. Yes, Entropy is currently not working because we have 2 streams and it will be up momentarily. Jared and I evenly share the super chats with our guests here on all flights to the after party. Something unique about TAP and what Jared George and I do here. All super chats today are evenly shared with our wonderful guest. For your in-flight entertainment today, we are getting tapped into Ilenia Contessa, born in Palermo, Sicily. Ilenia earned her diploma in tourism management. She also lived and graduated university in Germany, where she studied sinology. Currently, she lives and works in the import-export field as a teacher in Germany, participates in a nationalist, identitarian, traditionalist group, follows the Italic traditions, the Roman Greek esotericism as her spiritual compass, and runs more than a handful of social media platforms dedicated to several aspects of the aforementioned. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that we are wheels up and fast on our way to the after party where the weather is always perfect. It is our pleasure to serve you today, and I now give you your pilot and mine, Jared George.
Ciao. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And welcome, Ilenia. It's very wonderful to speak with you. We've been looking forward to this. And
Thank you.
We're going to be speaking a lot about your work, your experience living in Europe. We have listeners from all over the world, of course. But Jason and I, being American, we very much try to have on guests from Europe regularly so that we can all be connected with our brothers and sisters around the world. So you're very well known for your Facebook pages. Why don't we just start by hearing a little about how you started and what's behind the very popular Nordic Beauty Facebook page, and also Protect Beauty is another page you've started. So feel free to introduce yourself, begin talking about that, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so first of all, I actually don't live in Germany anymore. I decided to come back to Italy because I was really tired to stay in a foreign nation, and I really wanted to live in my fatherland. So right now I'm living in Italy since a month, so it's not been a long time, but I'm here right now. Yes, I've started a page. I think many fans already know why and when. I've started a page in 2013, so it's been 6 years now that I've managed this page. And I've started because there were not many pages about European beauty. I mean, I don't know if you remember back those times, there were really not any page about, I don't know, Nordic beauty or European beauty, Mediterranean beauty. It was nothing. There were just pages and websites about the celebration of the beauty and diversity of the other continents, which, I mean, there is nothing wrong with that, absolutely. It's fine, but it really was a symptom that something was wrong, because why wouldn't we feel proud, and why wouldn't we celebrate the diversity of our continent? That was strange. So I started the page, first of all, because, well, I like the phenotype of the Nordic phenotype, which is a very rare phenotype in the world if you think about the fact that not many people have a fair pigmentation, blonde or red hair, blue or gray eyes, etc. Billions of people in the world have actually just some shades of brown, while here in Europe we have all kind of diversity when it comes to phenotypes, pigmentation, and so on and so on. But why Nordic beauty? I mean, all European phenotypes are particularly beautiful. But the thing with Nordic beauty is that the mass media propaganda that started against us as a people was started in Anglo-Saxon countries like England and USA. And in England and USA, we all know that one of the typical phenotype is the Nordic one. And even if it's not Nordic, the fair pigmentation is typical. So it's seen as the traditional kind of beauty of England or of USA. That's the type of beauty that they have. And they started trying to corrupt our mind unconsciously by through mass media propaganda. So they started putting this beautiful blonde-haired woman with blue eyes, fair skin, together with men from other continents. Initially, it was not so common, at least in Italy. It was completely not common in the 70s or 80s. It was something that started, I think, 30 years ago, and then increased years after year. And right now, we live in a world where there is literally no photo shooting of, for example, high fashion brands, high luxury brands like, I don't know, Versace, Dolce & Gabbana, and so on and on, that doesn't have diversity. And with diversity, they mean that they have to put people from other continents into what is supposed to represent European culture or European traditions, which is also represented through the phenotypes of our people. Because in the end, it's our people that created what we are experiencing now, the world we are living in our continent. And our people belonged to specific races. So that's why I have started it. It's to do counter-propaganda. It's to show healthy, beautiful women, healthy, beautiful couples, and healthy, beautiful kids that will help heal our soul from all this ugly, mixed, ruthless society that leftist propaganda is trying to making us live in.
Very well said, and you certainly align with the values that Jason and I have, and our audience here on this show. We certainly understand that and support what you're saying. I'd like to also mention for anyone not familiar with Ilenia's page that, of course, it does celebrate the people, but also, Ilenia, you often share pictures of Europe itself, of landscapes or traditional folk clothing.
Of course, because traditionals they are beautiful, so they are part of the beauty of our people. I also share a lot of contents about paganism, native cults of Europe, and awakening of people in Northern Europe, in Western Europe, in Southern Europe, for what it concerns spirituality, native spirituality, which is the basis in the end of our people. We cannot talk of our people just by speaking rationally or just by talking about materialism. We have to understand that our spirituality is the most important thing, the Indo-European old faiths.
And I think there's something to aesthetics as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I get up here regularly and I speak. I use language. I write articles sometimes. I'm a communicator with words. But oftentimes I feel like that is just a little drop in the bucket when compared to the information and the spiritual energy that's contained just in an image. Just when you see certain of our landscape and our folk traditions, as you were saying, our values are encoded in these very images. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Jason and I, again, we're very passionate about this. We want to be involved not only in what we're doing in this show, but a lot of other things. We feel this is really a cultural revival, and it's not just intellectual arguments. On YouTube, people have debates and discussions, and it's important for us to counter propaganda in terms of information and how people have been poorly educated, like you said. Mm-hmm. But I think most people are going to be hit emotionally by images and symbols, and so much contained in the images. You can't just sit there and explain it. It has to hit you.
Yep, exactly. The feeling that you have when you see these beautiful people staying together and enjoying their culture without feeling guilty about that. This is priceless, and you cannot explain this emotion. There is also this notion in neurophysiology, neuroaesthetics, where they say that research of beauty improve the development of the brain. And the brain that is developed is surrounded by ugly things and cannot research the beauty because it doesn't find it anywhere. It doesn't get the same development of a mind, of a brain that is surrounded by beauty. So it's like it lacks of a kind of development when it comes to imagination, for example. And this is studied in neurophysiology. It's not that I am inventing stuff or something. So this is also scientifically proven. And there is also this beautiful concept that comes from the Greeks, which is kalos kai agathon, which means beauty and good, because it's like the two things are related. For example, for Plato, beauty and a beautiful person was beautiful on the outside, he or she was beautiful on the inside, because the two things are related. Why are they related? Because what is beautiful always strives for what is good and for what is rightful. So the beauty is actually a very important concept. And with beauty, we do not mean this artificial beauty that we see nowadays with all this filter and makeups, fake hairs, fake, I don't know, these fillers or something, all this makeup. We mean the beauty of our races themselves without any artificial construction.
Those, when you're talking about filters and makeup, that's the equivalent in food of just taking out these little bits artificially in a laboratory and making like a cake with all fake ingredients. And it's telling your brain, because when people were living in primitive times, maybe they needed a little bit of sugar for energy, right? But it's perverting you with all this extra stuff. Men especially, need to learn to look past that. You need to have these eyes where you see past the makeup and past all that BS, that to me is not beauty. It's just some kind of an artificial exaggeration of certain female features just to kind of fry your brain. But it's not real beauty, and you have to learn how to see that. And then beauty in general, I agree, beauty is a value in and of itself. There's an ethics and a whole value system just in looking at something beautiful. I'm fascinated by what you said about the brain developing when it's around beauty. It reminds me of failure to thrive syndrome. Even when a baby isn't touched, the baby cannot thrive, and in extreme circumstances can even die if it doesn't have physical, tactile contact. That is fascinating, because I've always, as an American, I've been drawn to Europe. I've enjoyed the times that I've visited. And I seek out places in the United States where maybe the architecture is a little more traditional and European, because I agree, just to be around that beauty. When I was in Germany, walking around the Tudor houses and all the little colorful flower pots outside the windows, you just walk around, it just puts you in a state of joy just to be around that beauty. And of course, that particular beauty of our people, your ancestors, it's reflected in that. There's a lot to it. It's not, I don't think it's superficial at all to say that there's actually a whole value system in beauty itself, and that we need to cultivate beauty again. So I fully understand what you're saying. You have a great community on your page as well, very engaged. You have a very engaged community, and you are running your regular contest right now. So what's it been like to build a community, and what have you learned about people? And you have over 100,000 people that follow you on the Nordic Beauty page.
And I've received like 100 messages every day, which I'm alone, so it's been very difficult to answer them all. I have recently added a moderator. The problem is that she was banned by Facebook, because we don't know. I mean, Facebook literally bans everybody. It's really annoying. But anyway, apart from that, it's been actually quite enjoying. I mean, quite beautiful to build this community, because I didn't imagine that I would have attracted so many people. But you cannot imagine how many people, in particular women, have messaged me to tell me that they are thankful that I have made this page, because they see themselves represented. So they see their kind of beauty and their faults represented, which is something that you do not see anymore. I mean, it's not so easy to see. Because if you think about the fact that many movies that represent our European minds, or fairy tales, like it was, the last one was the Siren, I think. I don't know the name in English. It's the fairy tale about the siren. Do you know the name in English?
The fairy tale about the siren? You mean the sirens? The
the red-haired one.
The mermaid, yes. You're talking about the Little Mermaid?
The mermaid, sorry, the mermaid. Yeah, that's it.
By the way, we're talking about aesthetics, and I didn't realize my camera is screwed up. I have a perfectly clear image on my side. I apologize. I don't know what to do, but I'm looking at the playback, and I look like a potato, so bear with us. Go ahead. I'm primarily red-haired, so I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the Little Mermaid.
No, because I was saying that these women were very happy to see themselves represented in this page. And I was noticing, for example, with this fairy tale about the mermaid, that she will be represented by an actress with Afro-American ancestry or something. So you see, you have your own fairy tale written by your own folk, and what happens? The people who should represent these fairy tales, which was written by, in this case, it's a Northern European fairy tale, will not be represented by Northern Europeans, but they will be represented by an Afro-American, which doesn't make absolutely any sense. Because if I wanted to look at an African actress, I would have seen a fairy tale written in Africa, right? So
precisely,
these women contacted me, and they were happy because they saw that in my page, fair skin is not demonized like it happens in many places in Europe. Because I don't know how it is in Northern Europe, but for example, I mean, I know how it is in Germany, but I don't know how it is, for example, in England or Ireland. But for example, in Italy, people go crazy for tanned, like for brownish skin. They go to the sea and stay there for 10 hours just to get a brown skin, which they don't have naturally, absolutely. But they get it because they have this thing, this propaganda that pushes for this new kind of beauty, which is like these hip hop singers from America, that have brown skin, big butt, big lips, big everything. That it's not similar to the European kind of aesthetic at all. But you see Europeans trying to look like someone they are not. And that's why these women contacted me and were very thankful, because they were like, oh, finally somebody shows fair skin, pale skin, and doesn't make jokes about that. They are showing beautiful red hair or blonde hair, and they are not demonizing them, etc. So they were actually, I have received a lot of appreciation and love from my fans, I have to say.
Yeah, that's something we again speak about, that we don't see ourselves in the culture, our own culture, and the psychological effects that this has on people. It's great to hear that the women feel they have a place. What about Protect Beauty, your other page? What is the focus on that?
Yeah, Protect Beauty in the beginning was actually the backup page for Nordic Beauty, because I was banned. So I was afraid that I would have been banned right after, and I had already reached like 10,000 followers. It didn't happen, so I've decided to change the name of the page into just Protect Beauty, in order to show all the European traditions, cultures, and phenotypes, which is something that I do not do in my page Nordic Beauty, because I have, of course, to show a specific kind of beauty. Since the name of the page is Nordic Beauty, I cannot show, for example, a Mediterranean beauty. In Protect Beauty, I have added many girls from many different countries. For example, one is from Spain, one is from Lithuania, one is from Latvia, one other is from Poland, one other is from Ireland. So they are trying to work on their own nations to show, and one other is from Romania. So they are showing the beauty of their nations, of the traditional clothes, of the traditional dances, and the traditional singing, or history and myths and fairy tales. So we are trying to work on this project.
Love it. I love it. And I might have to turn my camera off. I'm so blurry when I'm coming through on YouTube. Funny, where YouTube messes with us all the time, but it's okay. So why don't we talk, well, we're talking about your page, something apropos. Jason and I have dealt with a lot of this as well. Censorship, any kind of censorship you've dealt with, or banning or roadblocks. What has your experience been with things like this?
Well, I think you can imagine. I have received many useless bans for pictures that really weren't showing any kind of hate at all. Most bans I received were like 30 days bans. And they were because I had posted pictures of people like having a tattoo showing a rune, for example, like the Kolovrat. The last picture that was on my page was actually a Russian model who had a tattoo on her wrist, and it was a swastika. But I mean, it's a typical symbol of not only Eastern Europe, of Europe generally speaking. And of course, it wasn't meant to hate somebody else, because it didn't have anything to do with national socialism. It did have to do with the traditions of that nation. And it was clear enough, because it was a woman with traditional tattoos, didn't have any strange in it, but it was banned. So it was hate. It was considered hate by Facebook. So guess what? I cannot post it.
Gotta go, right? Apparently, my image right now is hate speech on YouTube, so I have to just be off camera. Well, maybe I'll try in a little while, but the image I went and saw on my other tab, what you guys are seeing, and it's just awful. So,
Jared, can you go up to the wheel at the top of the screen and lower the bandwidth and see if you'll come through clear, even though it'll be a little less sharp as you normally are?
I'll see if I can do that in a moment. But I'll ask Ilenia our next question before I do that, and that is, you are a woman of many talents, and yeah, we want to, of course, weave in this discussion of beauty and aesthetics, but there's a lot about culture in general and esoteric traditions and what's going on in Europe. We have a lot to talk about. Yeah. You have translated a book, Esoteric Aspects in the Roman am I saying gentile tradition? Is that how you would say it?
We would say gentile, but
Gentile, yes. So if you could tell us a little about that book.
Yeah. So the book was written by the Pontifex Maximus, which is the founder of the Association Pietas, Mr. Giuseppe Barbera. And I have translated it for him because we found an editor from America, who is an Hinduist, actually, and he wanted to absolutely publish this book because he fell in love with it. He said that he never read a book filled with such esoteric meanings and minds. It was amazing for him, and I can actually confirm that. It's like a little book. It's about 120 pages, but it's a jewel, really. What is that? What is esoteric aspects in the Roman gentile tradition? What is esotericism? We have this concept of esotericism and exotericism. Esotericism is the hermetic interpretation of symbols. It's the interpretation of the real essence of symbols, while exotericism is the superficial interpretation of that. So what did the writer in this book? He explained the esoteric aspect of many Roman and Italic minds. For example, I can talk about Romulus and Remus. Have you heard about them before?
Yes, the twin founders of Rome. Yeah, there's a lot of
there's
a lot of twin founders in a lot of different European traditions. Yes,
exactly. They are the twin brothers which who founded Rome. What is particular about them? Romulus and Remus are two brothers, but they are not similar at all. Why? Romulus is like the representation of good. He is the man of justice. While Remus, he is the man of what is unrightful, what is savage. He is completely against his brother. And the exoteric meaning of it could be like the fight between good and bad, let's say, good and evil. But what is the esoteric meaning of it? It represents the dualic essence of the human and of reality. It's like two forces that fight each other in order to reach an harmony. But how do they reach that? Romulus and Remus are a part of ourselves. So it's like in our person, there is not only one person. It's like we are two. And we are guided by two spirits, let's say, two spiritual entities. One of these entities, Romulus, which could be called in Greek Agathodaimon, which means the good demon, is the one who wants to bring us to heaven, to what is good, to the highest sphere, to Jupiter intended as justice, what is rightful. While Remus is the force that wants to let us be attached to material, so to the material world, to passions, to desires, to everything that is bad for us, like hysteria or being attached to money or to things, to material things, or to sex, for example. So we have, and this is called in Greek the Kakodaimon, which is the bad demon. So in this eternal fight between good and bad, between Romulus and Remus, we of course strive to make Romulus win, because we want to reach the highest sphere. We want to purify ourselves, to become gentile and to be initiated. So what is this? What is this initiation we are talking about, which is a theme that is treated in the book, which is one of the most important part of it. Because in modern society, we do not have any idea of what initiation is, but everything is an initiation. When you go to school, the first day of school is an initiation, is a social kind of initiation. When you have sex for the first time, this is the initiation to the sexual life. You have every kind of initiation, but we have lost the meaning of it. The initiation in ancient society, and they were present in all ancient societies, they were a changement in one's social and spiritual status, which in the case for Romans or for Italics, generally speaking, they were merged into one. A changement into social status was also a changement into the spiritual one. So the initiation was a phase where you were like the moon, who gets the sunlight from the masters who represent the sun, And you have to overcome a lot of proofs. Like, for example, we can read in the Odyssey, I don't know if you know it, but it's a very famous story of this man, Odysseus, who has to leave his fatherland, his home, for 17 years. He is away from his wife. He lost friends. He gets attacked from witches, from titans, from mermaids. He risks his life. And in the end, he finally comes back to his fatherland and to his wife. So what does it represent? It's not just a simple story about a man who does these trips and fights and so on and on. It's actually a story about our path as individuals who want to have a spiritual initiation. Once you overcome all these fights, because every of these, let's say, monsters like Polifemo, for example, or Circe, etc., they represent different kind of monsters that we fight, like, for example, the attachment to what is material, the attachment to sex, etc., etc. You have to overcome all these types of attachments in order to be initiated and to be purified and to be a gentile. What is gentile? It's gentile in English. It means kind. So a kind person is a person who is initiated into the mysteries, etymologically speaking.
Right. And are we to put a line between this and how, because a lot of people in the audience are going to be wondering this, the word Gentile that Jewish people use for us, are they related, or is it a totally separate thing?
Yes, they are actually related, because Gentiles exactly was a person who was initiated into the mystery, which means that this person was practicing, was ritualizing what is known as paganism. Which paganism, I mean, it's a modern one. We all know it comes from pagus, which is village, and it was a derogatory word used, not invented by Christians, to say, oh, look, these people who are superstitious live in the villages and they are evil, filthy pagans. So that's why they use this term Gentiles to represent us, because they are actually of a different blood and of a different people. Because look, Gentile, gen, it comes from gens. Gens in Latin means people. Genes, genetics, it means DNA. And then you have genius. Genius, genius in Latin is your spirit guardian. So all these words, genetics, genius, gens, gentile, and also in Italian genitore, which means parent, are all related. They have all the same etymological origin. So when Jewish refer to us as Gentiles, they are actually referring to a people who is different for blood and for beliefs, for cults, for spirit. So they recognize that we are different, that we are another ethnicity, that we are another spiritual entity, let's say. We do not recognize that. That's the problem. The problem is that modern people do not recognize that.
Right. And of course, in English, there's the tradition of the gentleman, and a lot of people now think that it means being gentle as in being soft and meek, but it was just a station in society and often had to do with kind of synthesizing or harmonizing different aspects of yourself, that you could still have that harshness when you needed to, but you knew how to control it. It goes with some of the things you were saying about the twin gods, Romulus and Remus, and the lessons in that. It dovetails with other things that I've been reading about other European traditions that all tie into, essentially, to take a lot of complicated stuff and try to distill it to something simple, is about harmonizing the different aspects of yourself, because as human beings, we're, you could say, between heaven and earth, right? And we are the rod between those. So this kind of concept that you're describing of Romulus and Remus, is it a synthesis of these two things? Because sometimes when people hear about this, go towards the light, go towards the good, they get into this whole world denying kind of a mindset, right? Where they just want to fly away with the angels and just forget about life on earth. But I think the whole trick is you have to accept life on earth for what it is and still bring the higher principles into it. It's a synthesis, right? It's
exactly.
The
Absolutely. No, you are right, because this thought of demonizing the material world and of being against your body, for example, or the reality. This is a Christian concept. It doesn't have anything to do with the Gentile way of thinking, because the Gentiles, this kind of initiation, it teaches you just to be detached from passions, from desires, from the material, which doesn't mean that you have to mock what is material. You just have to recognize that there are other types of, let's say, worlds, like, for example, the astral worlds, which is different from the material worlds. But it doesn't mean that you have to mock this reality, because you are living in it, you are alive. So you have actually life itself, the world itself. It's precious for the Gentiles. It's something to respect. So it's not something to be like, oh, what is that? Absolutely not. We are not Buddhist monks that go to the mountains and say, let's just forget about the world. We know that we live in this world, absolutely. We just have to understand that we have to be detached from certain types of passions that will make us more similar to beasts rather than to the highest souls.
The gods within, yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that a woman who started a page like Nordic Beauty would be world denying. I wouldn't think so. But Jason, do we have any news from you, sir?
Well, after working on a few of these programs in the back, I seem to be slowly pulling them up and having them working now. So everyone should be able to get onto Entropy now. You should be able to super chat by way of all of the normal means. And remember that Jared and I share the super chats with our guests here on Tap. We do have some super chats, and it started off today with Syrup and 10 pounds. Syrup doing double duty. Thank you very much, good sir. Mr. Mediker just dropped his new video covering the dumpster fire, which became of the UK's Tommy Robinson movement. The moment he went to jail. Small hats clumsily hijacking the discourse. Embarrassing, he writes. Thank you very much for the kind investment in white well-being of 10 pounds, Syrup, and for your work modding the chat. Roy Danton also super chatting, $5. And this also on YouTube. Thank you very much, Roy, and writing, nice to finally be with an airline without any anti-white commercials, entertainment, and security briefing. Well, you are most welcome. Thank you as well. Nothing more objectionable than being trapped in an airplane and being forced to watch the anti-white garbage in several different fashions on every single airline that I have flown. Seeing Red super chatting over on the Familiar Alternative. And ladies and gentlemen, you can find that down in the description. Just scalpel your way on down. And writing with $10. Thank you very much. Hail victory and hail white well-being. Thank you very much, my good friend, for the good words and the kind super chat. Over on Entropy, we had Raymond super chat with $5. There is no beauty like European beauty, be it people, art, or architecture. Hail our people. Indeed, Raymond, that is beautifully written. Thank you very much for that super chat, and I will be putting up a poll there shortly. So if you are over on super chat, ladies and gentlemen, you will be able to participate in that poll. You can also pose questions on Entropy that you can upvote, and so those questions with the most upvotes will rise to the top, and we will be sure to have them, as is usually the case. You can write to Jared or myself right in the live stream, and we should see your questions or statements. But if you want to up the chances, you can tag us. And of course, all super chats will be read. I'm keeping a sharp eye for that. Before I pass it back, I just want to quickly say, you all were talking about beauty a little earlier, and I have always held that beauty is one of our highest moralities. It is a cure for depression. It is a motivator to some of our greatest and glorious works, not just the beauty that we can find in the other sex, but also the beauty that we find in our spirit as we manifest that spirit, our biospirit, as I put it, on the world around us. This is why we are filled with inspiration and awe when we look at the creations, the monuments that we have built to our gods, irrespective of who and what those gods were, irrespective of who and what names we gave them. We still put our biospiritual stamp on whatever religious ideology that was, and it became who and what we are and served us when those ideologies were not undermining us. So that is what we see, what we hold in reverence. That is what inspires us to great and glorious acts in many ways. And it is the harmony that we feel feeding back into us, into that biospirit from our environment, when it is us who informs those environments. The problem, of course, is, as you all know, that when you bring other races, other peoples into your environments, and they attain what we've referred to as numerical courage, they then manifest their biospirit on the world around us. That creates disharmony, discord, and you end up with an arms race, a cultural arms race, and eventually what becomes an uncomfortable environment goes to a very violent environment, and we end up having balkanization. One funny thing that I will add is you all briefly spoke about this, the beauty, the real beauty. Ilenia has very well stated that, talking about the beauty of our people. And Jared, perhaps we should find the quote that you like that's in Prometheus Rising about the different beauty of our of the women of our race. Speaking
let me look that up.
And what I wanted to say, though, is if you all do not know the name William Gailey Simpson, he wrote an absolutely colossal book, one even larger than Born Guilty. Many years ago, he was a robust contributor to the community of white well-being, and had many intelligent things to say. One of the most intelligent things that he had to say was, be careful about selecting your mates. And to do so, he stressed, even back then when he wrote this book, to take your perspective, and mostly this is an issue when it comes to a man selecting a woman, because there's not really a whole lot a man can do to conceal what and who he is. I mean, if we dress up with hair extensions or makeup, I guess a toupee, people used to wear those sorts of things. But when it comes to selecting a mate, this is more an issue that a guy has to concern himself with, which is all of these methods that a woman can use to conceal and to make herself look to be something other than she is. And in fact, we see a lot of non-white women who go to great lengths. I mean, even these almost like prosthetic molds around their eyes and cheekbones. He suggests that take these dates to the beach, take them to the pool, so that they have to get in the water and they have to see that all gets washed away. And we then get to see exactly what these ladies look like. So it's a great suggestion by William Gailey Simpson. Check him out if you haven't seen the book in the future. I think it's called Which Way Western Man is the big book. I might even have it on my shelf, and I can find it while the discussion is going on. But it's just a funny but genuine suggestion on how to identify who your possible mate really is. Is she just put up and make her look like she's much healthier than she is, hair extensions and everything else, or are you seeing her for the way she really looks? And of course, the way our women of the Western kind really look, there is a panoply before us, and in every form and in every shape, it is absolutely stunning. It is the envy of the world, as is our creations, and it is a big reason, a big part of the reason why so many want entrance into our lands. It is not, and we know this, and it is not a crude thing to say. We know that many of the peoples of the world come not just for the stability of law, not just for the wealth, not just for the medicine, not just for the clean flowing water, everything that we offer here in the West that they don't have from the lands that they flee, the lands that their people create. But one of those big motivators is white women. That is one of the reasons why they come. That's one of the reasons why it's hordes of non-white males who, by the way, we find out when we peer a little deeply, that they have been inflamed with pornography of white women by anti-whites. And so they come here thinking that they can have any white woman that they want, and they can do with her what they want, and they will respect her the way they respect the women in the countries that they came from, which is to say that these are not Western standards of respect. And so I'll just pass it back, Jared. I don't know if you found that part or not. I can look for it.
I did actually, and then we'll get to the next question. It's actually perfect timing. But yes, Ilenia, my friend Jason here, is actually the author of a couple of books, and he has in his longer book, his more recent book called Born Guilty. It's actually a few books within a book, and one of the books within this is more of a myth, a myth written in a poetic style that Jason has given us. And he was speaking about the creation of our people in this myth. And just listen to this beautiful way. I had shared this on Twitter a couple of months ago when I read it for the first time because I thought it was beautiful. But the poetic way that he, in this particular passage, celebrates the different types of hair color a woman of European descent can have. Supple was her skin, long was her hair, yet changeful were the silken strands. For at times they glimmered as though bodying forth from the sun, shone with the silver of the moon, flared with the ruby's eye of the flame, enchanted with the rich palette of the earth, seduced with the darkness of the night. So going through all the different colors, silver, blonde, red, brown, black, I thought that was a wonderful celebration. And on this note, it's perfect to speak a little more deeply about something you share about and relates to your organization, and that is the importance of the cults of both ancestor worship and fertility. So if you have any words to share on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree with what Jason said, first of all, because not only they do this propaganda into their country, showing, as he was saying, all the beautiful white women and so on and on, but they do the same thing in our countries, because they show this non-European man as being perfect, athletic, smart, and so on and on, while the European men have been, particularly the one with Northern European features, have been shown in particular in American movies and from this American mass media as to be whether evil. Like, for example, I remember this movie with Sylvester Stallone where his enemy was the famous Swedish actor, which is actually who was actually playing the role of the evil one, for example, or he is shown in a effeminate way, in a feminized way. So the European man, and in particular the Northern European man, whether he is evil. For example, all these movies about World War II and the Germans, all these blonde guys, oh my God, they're crazy, they're bad, blah, blah, blah. Or they are like women. They are basically homosexuals. So that's it. So it's not only propaganda into non-European, non-white countries, it's propaganda into our countries to make our women think that men of other continents are better than our own men. And our own men are actually agreeing with that. In particular in countries like, Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands, Germany. They all have this massive propaganda.
I'm going to try my camera again. We'll see. Do you meet young women in Europe who travel in your circles and see through this? Are they seeing through this more, seeing the propaganda?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have also noticed that because I have traveled, as I said, and I met people from every European countries. I have met many European women with whom I am not friends with, but I've spoken to them. And some of them have told me that they do sexual tourism into North African countries. And I'm not joking at all. With all the beautiful countries in Europe, with all the beautiful people where they can actually have a stable relationship, they do sexual tourism in North Africa or in Sub-Saharan Africa and so on. So the people who are anti-racist, who are the one who think of all the people as being equal and good and so on, they actually treat other people as sexual toys or something. So that's really bad in my opinion.
And now your thoughts on fertility cults and ancestor worship, which perfectly relates to a lot of these themes.
So about the ancestors worships, you know that in Italy we have the cult of the Lari, and ancestors. The ancestors are important. Why? because the ancestors built the nation, the fatherland, they built our family, and they had a precise genius, as I was saying, a precise spirit, a guardian spirit that left there is part in of our legacy. So, for example, let's talk about my association, the association I'm part of, Pietas. Why is it called Pietas? Pietas is not piety. It has been translated with piety, but it does not have the meaning of piety, the modern meaning of piety. It's more like the Dharma, the concept of the Indian Dharma. And what is that? It's the duty. What kind of duty? It's the duty towards the fatherland, which means that you have, in order to be a gentile man, you have to protect your fatherland. You have to honor your gods, and you have to protect and love your family, your woman and your family, or your man if you're a woman. And the cult of the ancestors is related to Pietas, because in order to be a pious man, you have to love your fatherland and to continue what your ancestors built. You have to leave a legacy, to have a family, and you have, of course, last but not least, to honor the gods who were honored in your family, and to honor, generally speaking, the gods of your own pantheon. So that's why it's so important. The cult of fertility, of course, it's an important cult, because the moment you have this process of purification, you are a pure soul, and pure soul attract wealth and fertility. So, of course, the cults of fertility were important for the pious man. Not only for that, but they were very important for the people working in the agriculture field. Because, for example, last month I have been in a little town in Sicily, which is called Alcaralifusi, and they celebrated a festivity which is considered the oldest pagan festivity in Italy. Now, I do not agree with that, because in Italy and in Europe, we have hundreds of very old pagan festivities, but it's one that has preserved these characteristics at best. And what is that? It's a celebration about Demeter, which is one of the goddess of fertility, and a celebration to Dionysus. So these people prepare for the entire night, dances and sings and food and so on and on. But the particular thing is they prepare a kind of bottle, a vase, which has the shape of a phallus, let's say, and they decorate it with gold. So this gold represents the fertility of the land itself. And only women can prepare this kind of vase. It is forbidden to men.
And everything that we were talking about earlier is kind of the opposite of this fertility ritual. All of these things in pop culture are subconsciously encouraging people, taking away their life force, taking away the virility of the man, or giving the beauty of the European woman away. And it ties into what we were talking about earlier about symbols, because the kinds of symbols you're talking about, and I encourage, if you think of any more or any fertility rites, old folk customs that you think we should bring back, I encourage you to share, because these are symbols that are latent with those energies, but it's not like they're necessarily overly erotic. A lot of these, like the old maypole dancing in northern countries during the springtime, or actually it relates to Floralia too, which was a Roman rite around May 1st, these things children can participate in. It's not like it's pornographic. It's not like it's inappropriate for children to see, but there's still symbolically that rite of fertility is carried there. And of course, when you become an adult, you can kind of see the other layers, but it's always there. It's doing it in a healthy way, kind of appropriate to, and it hits different ages, different levels. But that perfectly goes with what we were saying before about symbols and art and beauty, and how we need an ethics, a morality around us where the symbols and the art contain this, and we wouldn't have to worry about fighting back against it. It's just that it's kind of an anti-life symbols have been put in our faces, and we've been swimming around in these for so long. Now, what about other organizations? I think you mentioned that there is a more particularly Hellenic organization that you're an organization
friends,
Italy
yeah.
has some relations with?
Yes, we have relations with the YSEE, which is the Hellenic Council, and it was founded by a man who unfortunately died this month, some weeks ago, which is Rassias. And he built this organization all alone, and he came to Rome to visit the Temple of Jupiter built by the Association Pietas, because in case you didn't know, with our association, we managed to build 3 new temples: the Temple of Jupiter, the Temple of Minerva, and the Temple of Apollo. So he came to visit the Temple of Jupiter, which was the first one who was built by us. And then some member of the association, the Pontifex Maximus and his family mostly, went to Greece to visit them. It was last year, actually. And so to strengthen this alliance that they have, this friendship, it's more a friendship, more of a friendship than an alliance, because they recognize that their goals is the same. They want to make their people aware of their native cult, of their native culture, and of their native traditions and the native faith. And luckily, both in Greece and in Rome, we are seeing a big awakening. I don't call it revival, because I imagine a revival to have something that is that and have to be reborn again. But our knowledge, our consciousness of all these symbols, of all these rites, was always there. It's just that it was hidden behind Christian symbolism, but it was always there. There were always groups and associations that have held all this knowledge throughout these centuries. It's not that Christianity came, stopped, there is nothing else. The Senate in Rome continued being pagan, continued to be gentile until the 6th century. And after that, we have had many people, many philosophers, many intellectuals, many poets honoring the gods, consciously or unconsciously, both in Italy and in Greece. So this is why we have this strong friendship with the Hellenic Council. And a month ago, I had also the pleasure to interview Mr. Anders Nilsson, which is the folk builder Europe of the Ancestor Association. And it was very happy to interview him, because I noticed that he actually has many common views with us. He talked about a very important thing that modern neo-pagans in USA and Northern Europe are forgetting: metagenetics. He talked about the fact that the knowledge of our people is in our DNA. And it is the exact same concept that the Romans had. Because as I told you, the genius, so the spirit, the guardian spirit, and gens, people, have the same etymological meaning. And for him, it's also the same, because it was like, we cannot accept people from every part of the world. All the people who are part of Asatru are whether Northern Europeans or Americans with a Northern European legacy. So it makes completely sense, because as he said, how can a person from the other part of the continent, like, I don't know, a Japanese or a Chinese, truly understand 100% the meaning of the symbols of our traditions, of our religion? They cannot. I mean, there are already differences between Europeans, and in the end, we are a big family, because in particular, when it comes to spiritualism, we all have this common Indo-European root. So even though that we have differences, so if for an Italian, for example, would be difficult to be integrated into a Nordic association, and for a Nordic into the Italian tradition, imagine what meaning could have to integrate somebody from, I don't know, Senegal or China into our cult. It wouldn't make any sense. And they made sure that it is not an universalist religion, tradition, group, but it is based on ethnicity. And it is the same case for us Italians.
When you compare, and I'm trying on camera again, I lowered my bandwidth, so we'll see if I look like a potato or not in a moment. But when you compare the Italic or Hellenic, let's say, to the other Northern European, there's a lot of it, again, in the spirit of what we were talking about earlier, Do you think a lot of it breaks down to just symbols and images that you of a certain descent resonate with? Where, you know, the light blue waters of the Mediterranean or some marble statue might just resonate as a little more close to home to you than it would to someone from Norway, and just as trolls and dark forests and the symbology and the images of all of that. And this isn't to break it down to superficiality, but I do think, again, that there's a lot encoded in the images and symbols itself. How much of it do you think is that, and how much of it have you seen from any of your studies that, of course, we know the most important thing, and we always emphasize this, is what we share with our European family throughout all of our European world. But have you seen any real differences in the philosophy or the worldview between the Italic Hellenic tradition and Northern traditions, the actual metaphysics of it, or how you live your life?
In the end, to be completely honest, when it comes to metaphysics, they have reached the exact same point. So the Hellene, no matter you were from the Mediterranean, from the Nordic area, from the Slavic area, from the Celtic area, they all reached the same answers to the most important questions that we ask ourselves. So when it comes to real differences, I wouldn't say there are real differences. There are different interpretations of the metaphysical forces, of the metaphysical ideologies, ideals, actually, not ideologies. For example, there are gods that cannot be compared. Odin, Wotan, cannot be really compared to a Roman or a Greek god, because it's like a mixing of many gods. For example, of Mercury, because he has this role of traveling through the world, through the Ade, for example, through hell, and through the worlds of the highest gods. But at the same time, he also is the all-father of the gods, which would be a characteristic of Jupiter. So you cannot really say that Odin is somebody or somebody else. The same thing is for example, for Lugh, from the Celtic traditions, because it's like a mixture of Mars, Ares, and Mercury, Hermes. So when we talk about differences, we can talk about different interpretations, but in the end, they always try to give you the same messages. Even when, for example, in this case of the Nordic religion, it's true that we don't have as many literature, as many scriptures as we do, luckily, for the Hellenic tradition and for the Roman tradition. But you don't really need 2,000 books to understand something that you can get through intuitiveness and through ritual practice. And this is what I got by speaking with Mr. Anders Nilsson, because from his answers, I understood that he has reached some level of knowledge that I have also reached, even though we come from different countries and we have different type of literature and we have different types of ritualizing, for example. So when you ask me what kind of differences do you really see, I can tell you the interpretations, but not the metaphysics itself. And I can also say that maybe we have held the most esoteric, the most hermetic messages, we have held them better than the others, we Italians and the Hellenics. First of all, because we had, as I've said, the scriptures for it. So to reconstruct a ritual for us Italics, it's easier than to do that if you're a Northern European, because everything was burned down. Even all the architecture, all the statues, they were done in wood. We know that. They didn't have marble. How could they do the magnificent statues that we did in Greece and in Italy? They didn't have the means to do that. Everything was destroyed by Christianity. So unfortunately, we have very few sources for that. And all the sources that we have were filtered to some kind of degree from Christianity. So the difference is interpretations, and that the Mediterranean world has held the hermetic messages better than them, because we had the scriptures and we had esoteric groups, not only in the Masonry, but also before, that have really protected this kind of knowledge. Like, for
Yeah.
example, in Italy, we had many movements. For somebody who is not Italian, it's not easy to understand that, because he should do a really great research. But I can tell you I can talk about some groups. For example, in the 13th century, between the 13th and the 14th centuries, we had a very important group which was born in Tuscany, and it's called Fedeli d'Amore, which means faithful of love. Fedeli d'Amore. You may know Dante Alighieri, maybe, the Divina Commedia.
Yes, yes.
You know, okay. He was part of it. Petrarca was part of it. They were poets, but through poetry, they were writing odes to the gods. Through poetry, they were trying to explain the hermetic messages of the Italic esotericism. We have another important philosopher from Greece who fled Greece to come in Italy. This was the 16th century, and it was Platone. Platone was a follower of the Neoplatonic philosophy, and he also helped all the esoteric groups that were built after him and that came after him, so in the 17, 18, 19, and until these modern days, to reconstruct the old Italic Hellenic religions. So we never had, it never stopped. There was always an intelligentsia in Europe who held all this knowledge, all this pagan knowledge. Like, for example, in Austria in the 20th century, before World War I and during World War I and World War II, we had the Thule Association.
Oh, yes, the Tula, yes. And also, not just the intellectual circles, but the folkish practices of the people themselves. I very much believe, from what I know so far, that even though we did have in the north that unfortunate things were made of wood and a lot burned and we lost a lot, that we still have, first of all, we do still have the sagas and different stories, and not just the sagas, there's other epic literature, the King Arthur cycles and the Mabinogi and from Celts and all kinds of things. But just the folk practices, you were speaking about this a little bit before, our ways, our instincts, what Jason calls the biospirit, it's always been there right under our noses. And there might be different window dressing put over it sometimes, or it might be diverted or muted. But to this day, so many of our rituals, things that we do throughout the year, the rhythm of the year, the calendar of the year, what we do in springtime, what we do at the Yule time, that we don't even think twice about, these are our instincts, our ways of life encoded into us. So I do think there's a continuity of practice that we could see just in the people, in the folk out there as well. But why don't we use this as an opportunity to transition to your time in Germany? You said you recently moved back to Italy, but you had spent time in Germany.
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah, I'd love to know just generally what you felt like moving there to another European culture in general, but also because Germany has been such a ground zero of the migrant crisis, and they are, of course, unfortunately, many of them are just brainwashed by the German guilt of what your experience was like there, and compare it to what you experienced in Italy as an Italian.
Mm-hmm. Well, I moved to Germany. It was 2014, and I moved into an eastern city, an eastern German city, which is called Leipzig. If you don't know where it is near Dresden and near Berlin. It's Saxony, so it was next to their area.
Northeast, roughly, yeah.
Not northeast. It's east. It's near Czech Republic. It's 4 hours away from Prague.
Oh, okay, because when you say Saxony, I picture a little further north, but gotcha.
Okay. So, look, I come from a city, Palermo, which has roughly 3-4% immigrants, foreign population. And the most part of this foreign population is based on Romanians and Albanians, which are other Europeans. So in the end, you don't really have that many non-European immigrants. When I went to Germany, I was in Leipzig, which is not a city that is completely filled with immigrants. It was officially 13% or something. Now it's way more. Now it's like 20%. But at that time, it was 30%. Now, I have lived in a neighborhood who was actually, and I didn't know that, unfortunately, before moving to Germany, was actually the immigrant neighborhood, which means that it was filled with Muslims, with Africans, Turks, and so on and so on. So for an European girl, it was not really the best to experience. I was happy to be in Germany because I always wanted to visit and live in Germany, because I was passionate about the language itself. I loved the way it sounds, but I really loved philosophy, German philosophy of the 19th century, in particular Nietzsche and Schopenhauer. The city where I moved was actually the birthplace of Wagner, for example. But apart from that, the problem is that there is not much German left in Germany. And I'm not speaking only about the people itself, I'm speaking about everything. You hardly found a restaurant that offers German food. If you ask a German what's the typical German food, they will answer kebab. You just found kebabs all over, Chinese, Thai, Japanese, whatever. You don't find German. And I mean, they actually have a typical cuisine. You can say, oh, but it's stupid, it's just cuisine, it's just food. It's not stupid, because it's their actual way of imagining the act of eating, which is also an important part of the day, because in the end, you eat like 3 times a day, you spend like 2 hours eating. And when you do not find your typical food anymore, you understand that there is actually something wrong with that your city is getting international. But what does it mean to get international? It means pretty much to lose everything that represents to be yourself, in this case, to be German. So apart from that, you do not really see anything that could make you feel in Germany, apart from the language. So there is no cultural association. People are not interested in what is Germany, in particular the youth. The youth is more interested in being globalized, in being international, in learning English, and they love going to USA because there they can find their paradise, their mixed paradise, where in the end we all know, and I've spoken with tons of Americans, we know that it's not a paradise to live in a super mixed, multicultural region. And we know that the most Pacific areas in United States are actually the ones who have more white people, which I think are North Dakota. I'm wrong? I don't know. I suppose those areas are the ones who are more filled with...
I'm sorry, where did you say?
I mean, I was saying that the areas were actually more peaceful.
Correct.
In the United States are the ones with more...
Certain geography. I thought you were asking where the white people were, but yes, you're right about...
No, I said like North Dakota.
Yes.
That would be one. Yes,
that would be one.
Yes, there's different places. Did you travel around Germany outside of Leipzig?
Yes.
So,
outside of Leipzig, I have been in... tell me.
I was just asking, and you encountered this everywhere? Were you in any rural places? I was there, but it was years ago at this point. And I was in Berlin, but also in Baden-Württemberg and a little sliver in Bavaria, in Western Bavaria. So I got to see some more, non-citified areas. And I at least had an experience that was more authentically German, you could say.
Well, I had experience of what German nationalism was, because I had friends who were part of a nationalist group. But let's avoid saying that, because that is kind of illegal in Germany. So let's just avoid that. But those were great people who really had the ideals that their ancestors had. You were telling me if I saw some beautiful places who were more Germans. Well, I can say that in Dresden, you barely see immigrants. This is the eastern part in the eastern part, you still see Germans. The problem is that even if they are Germans, ethnically speaking, they have lost the meaning of being German spiritually. They have been Americanized, globalized. The modern youth in Germany just listen to hip hop, to rap. They want to do this kind of dances, this twerking dance that I completely hate. I don't even want to remember what it is. And it's horrible, really. And they are obsessed with being international. I have lived my last, it was 1.5 years, more or less. I have lived in the western part of Germany, which is Bremen. And I have experienced what it is to live in a city that it's not European anymore. Bremen is a city that is officially just about 25% non-European, but in the end, it's actually like 50%. You don't see German kids anymore. You go around and you just see kids belonging to other folks, other ethnicities. You hear if you take the trams, the transportation, you just listen to Turkish, Arabic. I can tell you that one day I was returning home with my boyfriend, who is also Italian, by the way, and it was like midnight, and we were in a tram. There were a group of Africans at the back of this tram, and it was, I think, 5 policemen entered with big MP5, so these big weapons, and started looking for an African that had committed a crime. We all were like on the ground because they were with the weapons. They were looking for a person who could have attacked somebody. And I was like shocked because they do not tell you this on mass medias, do not tell you that. They just show you these peaceful, happy, multicultural societies where everybody holds each other's hands and they're all happy of being together. It's not like that. The first week that I was in Bremen, I was at the train station and I saw some kind of poster. And this poster was actually saying I was asking people to contact police if they saw this man who was a Turkish man because he was a pedophile. The other week, the week after, there was another poster and they were looking for a man who had raped a girl at the train station. So that's the reality we are living in Western Europe. It's not what mass media show you. Oh, we are all happy. It's all beautiful. We need to integrate these people. It's not like that. In Leipzig, where I lived, and I repeat, Leipzig is an Eastern German city, and it's not really filled with immigrants. And many Germans are actually still nationalist. In fact, if you see the polls of the political parties in Germany, the AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, is like one of the biggest parties in Saxony, so in these cities. In Leipzig, by the way, where I lived from 2014 until 2017, there was like a day that I still remember because I came out of the house. I was going to a bus stop, and there were policemen all over, people all over, and the street was closed. Why? Because 2 gangs who sold drugs in that area had a fight, and one of these person killed the other, and they were looking for the murderer, for the killer. They didn't find it. So the whole day they stayed there, the streets were closed, the transportation didn't work, and they put some manifests in the transportations written in Turkish, Arabic, and Romanian, and English, not in German, because they knew that the criminal was not German, and then the people who could have known this person were surely not German. So imagining what kind of world we live in. And then they have the courage to say that we need multiculturalism. Another interesting thing about the modern German folk is that they do not identify with Germany, with being German. They identify with being European. And with being European, I do not mean with being European as a continent, as a people, as we mean. They mean as being part of the European Union. So they see themselves as machines, as robots who just need to work to gain money and to make economy grow. So they live for economy. They identify themselves with German economy, not with the German ethnicity or with the German culture. It's crazy. This is the craziest thing about the German people, because when you know a German nowadays, don't think that this is the typical German or the German that you could have encountered if you traveled to Germany in the 20th century and in the 19th century. They have done a process of brainwashing with this mass media, with all this propaganda in schools, that they have transformed Germans into ruthless people who are ashamed of being Germans. Therefore, they have to identify with a bureaucratic system of the European Union, and they think of themselves of men who just need to get a job, to get money, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very sad.
You're making a lot of really fantastic points. I'm going to read some super chats from our fantastic community in just a minute. And thank you all for being here. We have a very large crowd today, and I imagine this video will be watched many times over. And a big hello to everyone who will be watching this video in replay who can't be here live with us. I know you will be the largest crowd yet. I just want to point out a couple of things that you're speaking about, Ilenia, that are reaching me. One of the first things is the most recent, I guess, perhaps working backwards, is that there are a lot of people who make this argument that we should, or not, let me rephrase that, not a lot, but there are some people who make the argument that we should refer to ourselves as European. And you're pointing out exactly what I have noted and continue to note, that European no longer means white people. And moving forward, the regime will be able to continue to identify a European, and more importantly, the discussions that those in our community who are trying to go free of anti-whiteism will have when they have these discussions with their friends, family, and strangers, trying to bring them around to the process of going free. When they use the word European, they're going to be confronted with this argument of, well, isn't the non-white person born in France a European, and you who is born in the US not a European? That is an argument that you don't, folks, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to have to get into when you're trying to help people going free. But we are Western kind. We are Westmen. You can also use white as an ancillary term, as I do, but when it comes to converting people, helping people to go free, helping yourself, cure yourself of the mean pathogens with which you are infected, this is the way you have to think. You have to think with the verbiage that undermines what the anti-whites have poisoned you with. If you have a verbiage that enables them to pick apart your thought process and your arguments so that you end up in these alleys, these tangential alleys, you'll never make any ground with your friends, family, and strangers, which we have to absolutely do. That is why I refer to this process as a curative contagion. It has to be able to touch and stick to all of these people that you share these things with. And it's not going to be able to do that if you end up in this ancillary discussion, this unnecessary discussion of whether or not you are a European or these other people are Europeans or what have you. Non-whites, whether they're born in France or Italy or Scotland, can never be Western kind. That Europe is a continent. We should identify ourselves by the biosphere that moves within our bodies rather than the landmass, because we can be taken off of planet Earth and put anywhere in this universe, and we will create another Europe. And then the reason why is because that is what's inside of us, what we call Europe today, Western civilization, what we have built outside of Europe, in the US and in Canada, etc. That is Western civilization that exists in the world around us because it first existed where? In our biosphere, in our heart, and who and what we are. Now, speaking to that, and what Ilenia was brilliantly saying a few moments ago, is that she was talking about there being an identifiable origin for all of these diverse and nonetheless just distinguished or different hues of our spirituality, of our stories from the past. And this is something that Jared, George, and I have talked about before. And I talk about this in Born Guilty. I talk about this kind of thing in the Go Free, that you could, as a thought experiment, we could say that you could delete every one of these stories from our minds. It is conceivable to think that the anti-whites could eradicate the totality of our history and compel us, as they have done and are doing, to embrace these brand new anti-white narrative fictions about the world. And left to our own devices, ladies and gentlemen, we would rewrite those same exact stories. Why? Because once again, those stories are in us. They're not outside of us. This is why they persist from one generation after the next. Yes, there will be a little bit of a different name here and a little bit of a different name there. Those are just simple things on the outside, just like these ornaments on the clothing, not changing anything about what's underneath. That is why there is this similarity. That is why you can take a white person from any European country, and that person can be integrated. And I'm going to speak to an anti-white argument in just a minute that's going to empower you all. The MC, the meme curative, that is your response. That is why you could take a white person from any European country, because it's the same biospirit. Yes, we have a heterogeneity of skin tone, of hair color, of eye color. Yes, we have this heterogeneity, and it is a beautiful thing. And we embrace that heterogeneity. And once we recapture our destiny, we will deepen and broaden it so that all of its manifestations will be brought through. Hair colors and eye colors that are yet to be even imagined exist within our people. We will go to those heights, ladies and gentlemen. A white person from any country in the West can be integrated into any other Western country. You could take the white people in the US right now have France within them. White people in Italy today have Australia within them. Why? Because it's a biospirit that then manifests who and what it is on that environment, that terrain, that climatological context in which they manifest that biospirit. And they manifest it in a way that it then feeds back, as does all races, feeds back into who and what they are. This is the anti-white argument that will be brought against you. And I will give you the cure to that argument, and I will read these fabulous super chats that I thank you all for contributing to this great cause of white well-being. And do remember that we share all of these contributions that you make during TAP with our guests. In this case, it is Ilenia today, and the good work that she is doing for white well-being over in Italy now that she has returned. This is the argument that the anti-whites will make. They will say to you, yes, but you see, you used to in the United States disparage the Irish, and you didn't want to let them in. You have, look at these awful writings where you said X, Y, or Z about them. You used to disparage the Italians. Look at the things that you used to write about the Italians in the past, and you took them in, and look, everything worked out beautifully. Ladies and gentlemen, I just told you why everything worked out beautifully. It worked out beautifully because the Irish, the Italians, etc., have the exact same biospirit. Why were there negative things said about these folks in history? Why? Because there was short-sightedness. Why? Because we didn't focus on the biospirit. Why? Because of something called war propaganda, which persists long after the hostilities have ended. When we have gone to war with each other and spilled our brother's blood, our cousin's blood on every continent, in every sea, which we should never allow to happen again. The only time a white person's blood should be spilled by another white person is if that white person has given their life over to anti-whiteism and is fighting for our demise, fighting for our ill-being. Only then should we raise a fist in an angry voice for those who otherwise share our biospirits. And I tell you, we will indeed defend ourselves in every case against anybody, whether non-white or white, who brings ill to our community. But in those cases, what you had were long-standing animosities born about by war propaganda and war after war after war in the service of petty chieftains at the heads of our different nations across the West. This is a sin for which there is no forgiving, a sin that will drive us forever to remember every industrialist, every political leader that moved our people in hatred and with the fear of hanging for treason, with the fear of life imprisonment, if we didn't go to war against our brothers and sisters, so that those petty chieftains could be elevated and their wealth increased as a result. We will never let that happen again. The big difference is that when we spoke negatively about the Irish here in the United States, when we spoke negatively about any Southern European group here in the United States, it was because of long-standing animosities, war propaganda as a result of dying and killing our brothers and sisters. The difference with the non-whites is that these are beings with completely different biospirits. We have gotten beyond, and we should continue to move beyond these petty differences that we otherwise celebrate. A difference in this holiday, a difference in that holiday with the white people in this Eastern European country or this Northern European country, we are constantly getting beyond these petty differences of dress, petty differences of these hues of Western civilization. These things are meaningless as dividing lines. They only became dividing lines not because we the people wanted it, but because petty money-grubbing bastards at the head of our nations, miscreants who wanted nothing more than to enrich themselves. That is the reasons they deepen these lines, which otherwise are not deep at all. Differences that otherwise are easily bridged and we can easily celebrate and magnify for the purpose of that celebration in the future. But what's happening now with these non-whites being brought into our nations, these are people with entirely different biospirits. And now we have evidence that there is no integration. There is no changing. There is no, for God's sakes, the biggest evidence in the world that there is no integration is the fact that the Jewish people have lived among us for thousands of years and haven't integrated yet. That is the evidence that there is no integration of biospirit, ladies and gentlemen. That is all the proof you need. When they bring in these hordes of non-whites from different lands, and let me just say, so that we can't be blamed for saying that we're better, I will tell you now that they are better than we are, that they are smarter than we are, that they are more athletic than we are, that they are nicer people than we are. Fine, I grant you all of that. And yet I still want white well-being. I still want to be the chain and the link that brings the history that my people have given to me, the duty and their sacrifices that I owe them, and that I will now take that torch, that lit torch, and I will pass it on to the next generation, burning more brightly than it was passed to me. I don't give a damn how great these people are. I don't give a damn the arguments about economic boon or what have you that the anti-whites will make. I care nothing more than to pass on what it is my duty to pass on, and I damn well will pass it on. We can integrate every white person on planet Earth. Not a single non-white can be integrated into our biospirit. It will always be uncomfortable for them. They will continue to enclave. They will continue to mimic our biospirit until they have numerical courage, and then they will manifest what is truly and rightly theirs so that they can feel harmony with their environments. And you can see throughout history, if you can read a word on a page, how that turns out. Those pages are covered in blood. And with that, I'll pass it back. I'll pass it back to Ilenia for any thoughts she might have, and to Jared, as I see that he's now returned. Oh, wait, actually, let me just quickly read these. We have Fash, Goth, Apocalypse, super chatting on YouTube, $1, 2 times. Thank you very much, Fash Goth. Cool name. Thank you for those. The first time I've seen you, I think. Thank you very much for those $2 for the cause of white well-being. We have Jason Schultz on over the at the Familiar Alternative, super chatting with $10. Thank you very much for that kind super chat and writing. I'm very happy to support this fine effort and your beautiful guest. I absolutely concur with both of those sentiments, Jason. Great first name. Thank you very much. Preeter Nova, a big leader in our community, here all the time, regularly contributing, and today donating $5 for the cause of white well-being, saying, I'm guessing this is Latin, just sanguinis, to visit Italy. Probably has something to do with heritage and going back to the country. It does? Okay. Yes. And writing, can I find traditional women in Italy? American culture is dead. I want my children to be raised in Italian. Well, we'll leave that in the air for a moment. Read JK160, super chatting with $20. Thank you very much, JK. Another fine man contributor to the community. Thank you for being here. Writing, a week before my wedding, my wife went and had her makeup done to see how it would look. The Asian makeup artist made her look like a clown. I told her the makeup needed to be reduced by at least 90%. She agreed. Well, thank you very much for that. And that's speaking to earlier when I was talking about non-white people's doing everything they can to look as white as they possibly can, to the point of even having prosthetic pieces placed on their face that they put on, they don and doff like makeup. Then we have on over at the Cash App, an irregular place to super chat, but our dear friend Jan is super chatting over there, and super chatting $15 today because we have on Ilenia. Thank you very much for that super chat. Now we do have 2 questions over on entropy. So we do have the question in the air right now about being able to find somebody who to find good traditional women in Italy because of the dead and dying culture, the Western culture, which is dead and dying. It's not. Let me rephrase this. It's not dead. It's not. We are an occupied people. The regime is anti-white, and they are shoving this down our throat. People like us who spread, people like Ilenia who spread the truth, who spread our history, who spread our culture and our identity around the world. We get censored by the anti-whites. And why do they censor us? Why do they censor the songs? Even that the great Zurius makes with no words in it at all. It's because of our culture and who and what we are. And the anti-whites want to prevent that from reasserting itself, but they have no chance in hell of stopping us. Now, let me see. We have some questions. I want to make sure we get it. We got a question from Roy Danton. This is just a quick question to me. In the last article that I put up on my webpage about Dr. William Luther Pierce and Revelo P. Oliver, there was no text. That was not an accident, Roy. That was intended. I was just pointing out that specific, I didn't want to give credence to the article itself. It was just an article in which I was being equated with Revelo P. Oliver and Dr. William Luther Pierce. Thank you for that question. We also have a specific question, and we have more super chats pouring in now. We have another question on entropy. Ilenia, what do you think about women doing things to stay whiter skinned? Some of us tan easier than others who burn easy. This sort of thing is especially popular with Asians. And I will just say this, and I'm going to pass it right over. We got the 2 questions about finding traditional women. We have the question about staying whiter. And I will say this, ladies and gentlemen, we need more than ever to stamp out every form of the language of white suppression. So it's not just not using the word racist or the word bigot or these sorts of words, but it is also getting away from blonde jokes, Irish jokes, anything like that should be considered anathema. And when people do them in your presence, you should reject them. And if they continue, you should reject that. Also, these jokes about skin tone, about somebody being too white you're too white. Why don't you get some sun? This sort of thing. All of that should be considered anathema in our community. This has been forced down our throats, and you were repeating it like trained monkeys. When you say it's not funny at all. Let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, everybody to one degree or another can darken their skin. Even the fairest person can jump into a tanning booth and slowly enough can darken their skin many times over, can damage their skin. How many out there can get whiter? So we will celebrate the beauty of fair skin, as we will celebrate all of the hues and shades of our white flesh as the most beautiful things. Subjectively, yes, we will honestly say, subjectively, yes, the most beautiful skin tones on planet Earth. And I will pass this over to Ilenia. We'll get those questions asked, and I'll collect these next super chats.
Okay, I will answer the questions first, and then I would like to add something to what you said. So about finding traditional women in Italy, of course you can find them. But if a traditional woman in Italy is traditional, she will try to get an Italian man. So if you're not Italian, you don't have a chance with a traditional woman. Sorry for that, but that's the reality. And apart from that, the second question was how to remain whiter. And my answer is that, I mean, you are not more European than somebody else if you are whiter. Because, I mean, we also have African albinos. They are super white, yet they are not European. There are people in the Mediterranean that are naturally olive-skinned. They are naturally brownish, but they are Caucasoid, 100% European. So they cannot do in any way, they cannot stay in any way whiter because they were not born white-skinned. They were born olive-skinned, brownish-skinned. But that's completely normal because in the end, all the Mediterranean, imagine Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, having all the sun, all the strong sun in the summer. How could you remain super white? I mean, it's not a problem if you are not pale. There are different shades of skin colors in Europe, which is also one of our characteristics. So one of the things that make us beautiful. So not only hair colors, eye colors, and so on and on, but also skin colors, from pale, like for the kind of pale that redheads have, to the olive type of skin, to the brownish type of skin that many Greeks or South Italians have. So that's not a problem at all, in my opinion. One other thing that I wanted to add to your speech, I completely agree with that non-Europeans cannot be integrated. And for anybody who has a doubt, they could also study a little bit of history of the Balkan countries, for example, who have been tortured by the Ottoman invasions. Ask a Serbian or a Greek if they like Turks, if their ancestors liked their Turks. They literally died and fought to the end to stay what they were. They never forget the fact that they were Europeans, that they were Serbians, that they were Greeks. They fought for centuries in order to remain what they were, in order to hold their traditions, their languages, and they did it, luckily. But they suffered a lot. A lot of them died. How could you tell these people that they have to welcome people from Turkey, for example? Really, how could you do that? And for all these people, another thing that I can add, I come from Sicily, and Sicily is very famous in the world for having been under the control of Moors, of North Africans. And everybody always thinks of Sicilians like some kind of short, dark, and Arab-looking person. Apart from the fact that I am 100% Sicilian and I don't look like some kind of dark manlet, as you can see, we didn't have all the mixing that is shown in this kind of propaganda. We have been victims of propaganda. We have been, I think, some kind of experiment of this mass media anti-white, anti-European propaganda. Because since, let's say, not only in the last years, but since a century or two, we have pushed, those who had the political powers. I mean, Michele Amari, I don't know if you know him, possibly not, because he was an anthropologist, an Italian anthropologist. And he said, since he was against the unification of Italy, and he was pro-Bourbonics, which were the Spanish royalty, he said that we were not Italians, but that we were Arabs, that we have been erased by the Arab invasion, and that we have turned into Arabs. We were not Italians, so we should have not been part of a possible unification of Italy. All of this has been pushed through the years, and now we have been said from, not only from mass media, but particularly in school, we have been taught that we are not Sicilians, that we do not have an identity, but that we are mutts. We are mutts between Northern European, Western Europeans, Arabs, North Africans, Turks, Africans, what else? I don't know, Greeks. We are everything but ourselves. Now, this is completely not true, of course, because as you can see, if you do a trip in Sicily, you can see that the people look exactly like the other Italians. Of course, we are divided in areas. With the southern areas is darker and looks more like Greece. So the people there look like more like Greek people. And the western part look more Italian, more Western European, let's say. Why? Because Arab, it's true that they killed a lot of us. Palermo, which is the capital, they literally genocided us. They have killed around 1/3 of the population. So when the king, Frederick II, came into power, so when the Normans came to aid us, defeat the Arabs, so see how much we love them. We fought them for 200 years, and when the Normans came, we were all ready to help the Normans get rid of them. So that's how much we loved being surrounded by non-Europeans. Imagine, the Normans came, we were super happy, we fought with them, and the Norman king repopulated Palermo with people from other parts of Italy and from the Norman people as well. That's why you still find nowadays in the capital people with blonde hair and blue eyes and so on, and also in the western part of Sicily. Until nowadays, we have held a festivity which is called Palio dei Normanni, where we celebrate the fact that we have fought the Moors and that we have defeated them. After we defeated them, they were put in some kind of concentration camps in Puglia, and then they were brought away. Whether they were killed or they were brought away, they had to return home. So imagine this experiment done in Sicily, where people, if you ask a Sicilian, with whom do you identify? He won't answer, I identify with being Sicilian, I identify with being Italian. They will say, oh, I am Arab Norman. They think they are a mixture between Northern Europeans and Africans. I mean, this is completely not possible, also because it's shown from genetic evidence. From the genetic evidence, it's shown that we are an Italic tribe, and we are, the difference with other Italians is that we are closer to Greek people, but that's because we are literary cousins with Greeks. We have been part of Magna Graecia. So it completely makes sense that we are the way between the Roman, the Italic world, and the Greek world. This is nothing new. But to say that we are a mutt of 10, 15 different kind of ethnicity, this is only propaganda. And this propaganda has been also very strong in the USA, because if you see, you were saying, for example, that we should stop making jokes about Irish people, about people with pale skin, about Scottish people, about Italian people. There are, how many jokes are there in America about Sicilians? Everybody thinks in America that Sicilians are dark, that they are criminals, that we are all involved with mafia or something like that. But here you are, a Sicilian girl having a page called Nordic Beauty, Protect Beauty, speaking about nationalism and identitarianism. Also because I am part of a circle, an identitarian circle in Sicily, which is called Circolo Aletheia Sicilia. And next month, on the 10th of August, we are having a meeting with another association of Sicily, where we will speak about all the bad situation that has been caused by mass immigration in these camps, these refugee camps that were built in a city called Mineo. We are going to have this meeting, which is very important because nobody knows anything about that. In Italy, they do not know how the people in this city, who had the biggest refugee camp of Europe, lived. All the crimes, all the rapes, all the sexual harassment, all the violence and the troubles that they have caused, that this kind of integration has caused. One other important thing to notice is that, you know, Lega, you know Salvini. I think you know that Lega has become the strongest party of Italy. Lega was initially, many years ago, called Lega Nord, because it was a party was mostly for northern Italians from this area that is called Padania. But right now it has become Lega, just Lega, because it has turned into a civic nationalist party. So they officially think about the problems of the entire nation. And what is funny is that in places like Lampedusa, which is the island where all the migrants go, I think you know that, it's in the deep south of the Mediterranean Sea. Mm-hmm. And in Calabria, which is another southern region, Lega won with more than 30%. So a party whose initially was just for the northern Italians, who then turned just in the last years nationalist, took 30% and even 40% in Lampedusa, so in cities and in the regions in the deepest south of Italy, because these people are completely tired and filled with all this propaganda that doesn't really say how things are going with this push to this beautiful multicultural integration. It is not working. Not in Italy, not in Germany, nowhere. It's not working. It's, as you say, once they will be the majority, they will adapt our state, our nation, our rules, our traditions, everything to their biosphere. They won't adapt to us. They will adapt to what they are. They are just waiting to be the majority. So if people do not understand that and continue supporting mass immigration because they feel bad, because they see all these skinny kids in Africa, if you feel bad about that and you think that you can justify with that mass immigration, millions of people flooding our countries, then you have really a problem in your mind, because you are not understanding the catastrophic situation we are in. Italy has the lowest birth rate of Europe and one of the lowest birth rate in the world, together with Germany and with Japan. Germany and Italy have 1,2 or 0,3 kids per family. To survive, to make a people survive, you need at least 2.3 kids per family, not one. With one, you are going to be extinct. And this is what we are going to face. Italy has 60 million of people, 5 million out of that are immigrants. And then there are 1 million illegal immigrants in our countries. So imagine that. In the 80s, we didn't completely have immigrants. In about 20, 30 years, they are 10% of the population. Where are they going to be in the next 20 years if our families don't have kids anymore? If our state gives money to these associations and doesn't give money to families because we do not get any kind of support. If I as a female want to have a family here, want to have kids, the state is not going to pay me anything. I have to pay everything by myself. This is the way they are supporting us. One other important thing is, I think you have heard about this Carola Rackete and all these NGO that go to Libya, take immigrants, come to Lampedusa, come to Sicily, and they say, no, we are not going to respect your rules, we are not going to respect your land, we are just going to go in because that's what we want. So we have all these anti-Europeans, all these idiots, because they are idiots, because this Carola Rackete was nothing but a bored rich child. She was the child of the daughter of this man who sold weapons for a job. So imagine how rich she was. Then what she did, how could she spend her money? By helping poor German families, by helping poor German kids. Do you know how many problems Germany has as a nation? They have problem with alcoholism. Many men are so depressed that they get into alcohol and they cannot go out of that. Where is the sensibilization about that? Where are the people helping them? All the drugs addicted. Where are them? They are nowhere. All these people just think about helping Africans, about helping other ethnicities, as long as they are not Europeans. How many poor people are there in Italy? We have officially 4 million people who live in poverty. 4 million people are a nation if you think that Denmark has 5 million of people. So we have an entire nation within our nation who lives in poverty. And what do rich people in Europe do? They help migrants, they help Africans, because they are the only ones who need help. We do not need any help. Can you imagine that? This is the situation we are facing in Europe, we are facing in Italy, we are facing in Germany. This is what we are facing everywhere. And there are still people who have the courage to say that multiculturalism is it's like the best thing that could happen in Europe.
The best thing ever. I'm going to put a link in the chat to a page on my site called Euro Migrant Crisis Fact Sheet. And people can scroll it. You please save it and look at it later after this episode. But I took a while compiling it. I wanted it to be there from when I launched my site, to have information, journalism, but also video testimonials from people in different parts of Europe and what's going on over there. And unfortunately, some of the videos have been taken down, but most of what I put up is still there. I have to go maybe find some new things. But to Ilenia's point, there's 2 videos I remember from Italy. One is a heartbreaking video of an Italian man having state authorities come to his hotel, a small bed and breakfast in the countryside, and flood it with migrants, invaders. And he is protesting and saying, please, no, I'm running a business here. And he didn't have a choice. They're using his room and board for this. The other is a video of, as Ilenia was saying, Italian people in camps, living in tents, not getting anything from the Italian government, while
why they were
this is
living in
being
tents?
subsidized?
Because we have had some years ago we have had earthquakes. Earthquakes are a problem in Italy. We have had a bad earthquake in Amatrice, and in this city many people died, but even more remained without home. They stayed in tents not for weeks, not for months. There were people who stayed in tents for years, while the migrants were staying in hotels, in camps. Tell me if this is not racist against European people, against one's folk.
Yes. And you said, well, we actually don't really put much power, any power into the word racism. We don't acknowledge that word really, but I understand the sentiment that you're saying. And what you were saying earlier, what you started with is you're part of an organization that you're trying to explain this to people in rural areas more that have not been hit by it and don't know the realities of the city yet.
Yes, yes.
And how are you doing that? How are you communicating that to these people?
Well,
Explaining everything you explained to us?
well, you really do not need, I mean, the majority of people in Italy acknowledges this situation. It's just a small elite that doesn't. If you have to do a poll tomorrow, or to say to Italian, you have to vote, decide. Do you want all the immigrants to remain? Do you want to completely stop immigration and to make all the immigrants go back to their countries? Mark my words, at least 70% of the people would say, yes, we want to stop mass immigration. We don't want any immigrants anymore, and we do not want the illegal immigrants here anymore. There is just this tiny part of Italy, which is a tiny part anywhere else, which is always this economical elite, this globalist elite, who wants our bad, who wants our genocide and our complete death. And they are the one who who have the power, because they have hands everywhere. They have hands, mass media programs, TV, schools, books, all these advertisements, everything. So actually, it's not that difficult to speak to, in my case, with Sicilians and to explain situations, because they all agree. Like, for example, the other day, I was taking the bus, public transportations. People were complaining because the mayor of the city of Palermo, which is a shitty leftist, let me say that, he is a completely traitor. He is one of the worst politicians in Europe, believe me. He said that he wants to give the honorary citizenship to Carola Rackete. And there were people speaking in this bus saying, who are the people who voted for that? Who are these idiots who voted for them? We do not want that. This is not what our people want. Carola Rackete is hated by Italians. I mean, she and other people like her of all these NGOs, they say, oh, but we are acting because of humanity, because we have to help our people. But at the same time, they are not listening to people of the country they want to go in, and they are not respecting the will of millions of people. So they talk about humanity, they talk about respect. Where is their respect for our will as a folk and as a people? We built Italy. We have to decide who comes in and who goes out. If we do not want these people, no matter how much they are suffering, we are suffering too. We cannot think always about the others. We are suffering. We have 4 million poor people. We have people living in train stations. We have people living on the streets. How are we supposed to think about this Carola Rackete and all these rich kiddos who bring other people who want to have our help? We do not have even the means to help our own folk. How are we supposed to help other folks? And why should we do that? I mean, logically speaking, even if I wanted, and it's not that I do not want, but if I wanted to help other ethnicities getting a better situation, what would you do? You welcome millions of poor people and that's it? And this is the way you are going to solve the situation? Or you teach these people to build their own economy and to build their own cities, to make their continent a better place where to be? I mean, Africa is full of resources. It's a beautiful continent. It's full of rich places. It's true that they are corrupt, and it's also true that the Western elites do not want them to have a better situation. They want to exploit them. They want to exploit their resources. But we Europeans, we of the people, we are part of the people. We are not part of the elites. We are not part of those who want to cause troubles and wars in their nations. We never voted for war in Libya, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria. Never. We never wanted that. It's just the elites that want that. So we have to pay the price for a few people who want the resources to get money. But this is not the way. And it's, as you said, because many Africans, the respectful ones, remain in Africa, try to fight corruption, and try to build a better place where to live. Because that's their continent, and they should feel an attachment to their continent. Then there are the other millions of people who do not give a flying fuck about their continent and just want to have the easy way. They come into our nation, they get money, they get houses, they get women, and that's it. In Germany, you have a very good social environment. I mean, a very good social situation. What I mean with that they have a lot of aid to people who lost their job. For example, they have this thing called Hartz IV, which is a kind of aid that they give monthly to people that stayed without a job for 3 months. The more kids you have, the more you get per month. And guess what? Guess who has more kids? Turkish families and Arab families.
Same thing here. Same thing here.
Yeah, they have like 5, 6, 7 kids. There was a particular situation where this Muslim man was interviewed. He had 2 wives and 13 kids. 2 wives. Polygamy, it's illegal in Germany. Polygamy, it's illegal in most European countries. You shouldn't have 2 wives. He had 2 wives because they have to respect his religion and culture, and 13 kids. He got from the state 5,000 euros per month, plus the apartment. It was for free. So the contributors in Germany, the workers, they work, and like around 1/3 of what they gain is given to the state. It's a contribute. But these contributes then go into this social aid institution, this arts sphere, and much of this money goes into the hands of these families, which are not who are not Europeans. One of the politicians of the AfD, this Alternative für Deutschland, had asked in one of his speeches in the parliament to make this aid possible just for German families, European families. Just in these two situations. Of course, imagine all the democratic leftist parties. What did they do? Of course, they called him a racist, Nazis, blah, 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 blah. I mean, you can imagine that.
Well, let me jump to these super chats, because earlier we seem to have awakened the audience and they started super chatting. I think that the passion that I started to feel communicated itself and filled these good people. Their antennas were up and they filled them with the great energy of the cause for white well-being. And it is an honor, and I'm so proud of you all. Let me jump on to some of these. American Life, super chatting with $5. And I believe that was on YouTube. Thank you so much for that kind investment. Writing, great show, and all without a single Fed post. Great work, all of you. Thank you very much for that kind super chat. We had Alt Fit here on YouTube, super chatting with £10 and writing, happy to support our pro-European causes. By the way, tanning for people lacking in melanin greatly increases risk of skin cancer. Want to look good? Work out in the gym and eat a good organic whole food diet. I just, as an aside, I noticed some people saying things after the last time I was talking about Michael Jackson bleaching his skin. They're missing the double meaning of what I say when no one can get whiter. The double meaning is there that, of course, I'm well acquainted with the ability to bleach one's skin. What I'm talking about there is you're not going to be able.
Did we just lose Jason? Oh, let me see.
Okay, we see.
Can anyone hear me? Everything just stopped
Okay,
working.
now yes. Okay.
Jason, you may have to leave and come back. Wait, I think I'm hearing you, Jason. Can anyone hear me? No, well, I'm hearing myself on the replay. I think Jason needs to leave and come back. So in the meantime, we'll get back to Jason's super chats when he can come back. But Ilenia, are you still with us? Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay, you just took
Yeah,
off
I'm here.
the camera for a second. So let me ask you this on some of the things you were talking about earlier. What about just some tips, safety tips for women, since you've lived in some of these enriched cities? Do you have anything to tell our female fans out there?
Well, I
staying
suggest
safe?
to practice some sports, to practice some self-defense, because you would need that. It's not nice to say that you really need to do some sport, not to be healthy, but to learn how to defend yourself. But it's the reality. If you live in the big capitals of Europe, Paris, London, Berlin, Stockholm, Rome, blah, 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 you really need to know how to defend yourself to some extent. And of course, if you can avoid going out alone in the night in these neighborhoods who are not really safe because they are filled with these people who have criminal history, just avoid that, or be in group, or be with your boyfriend, or train as much as you can.
Yeah, it's common sense stuff, but you
I
really
mean,
need,
yeah,
you need to keep it in mind sometimes. You know, people think, oh, you know, this way through this bad neighborhood it's quicker, maybe tonight I'll be okay, but you can never assume that.
you can never know that.
You
How
always,
many cases did we have in Italy? You do not hear that because, of course, you have your own journals and your TV news about what happens in America. America is huge, so a lot happens in America. But in Italy, we also have had in the last years a lot of crimes. One of the worst crimes of the last year, it happened last year. It was this girl called Pamela, who was a young girl. She was like 17 years old, and she was already drugs addicted. She went to buy drugs from an African pusher. This African pusher sold her these drugs. She took those. She was unconscious, and she was raped by two Africans. Then she was killed. Then she was cut in pieces. Then she was eaten. Then she was put in a coffin, and then she was thrown away in a river.
yeah, we know that story here.
You know that story. Okay, that man won't be in jail for 20, 30, 40 years. No, he will be in jail for about 3 years. So that's the sentence.
As it stands now.
Yeah. I mean, we have had
Hopefully it
cases. It
changes.
was many years ago. It was this famous African man called Kabobo. He went completely nuts. He was crazy. He took an axe and he killed 3 people in Milano. 3 people killed with an axe. And what did they do? What do you think that the lawyers did? They said that he was mentally ill, that he was unconscious, so he didn't go to jail. He was put in these rehabilitation centers, and then he will be free because he was mentally ill. But at the same time, last year we have had this case of an Italian man who was tired of all the situation, went out with a gun and started pointing the gun to immigrants. He didn't kill anybody, absolutely anybody. Nobody had problem with that, but he pointed a gun, so it's a crime because he attempted officially to the lives of people. He was put in isolation jail. Not a normal jail, but isolation jail, because that's racist. That's a racist crime. That's super bad. But if an African man really kills people, that's mentally ill. That's not racist. That's being mentally ill. These people need help. They do not understand our way of living, you know? There is also this famous German video of a German man going into this, working into these institutions that help migrants being integrated. And he explains how to have sex with German women and the way they want to be approached by men. A German man was teaching this to non-European men. Imagine how, I mean, I don't have words to describe that, honestly.
No, it's sickening. It's and everybody can see and hear me fine now. Is that the anti-whites have tried to strike again? But I think I'm back.
Good to me.
Okay. You all hear me? Okay. Does the
I'm curious. Wait, I'm
chat
curious
hear me?
Camera. I'll just turn that on for a second. But go on, Jason.
Okay. So I was just saying the double meaning to the you can't become whiter is you can't become a white person.
Oh man, fun in YouTube land. Have we lost Jason again? All right, well, we'll give Jason time to rejoin us. And let me ask you about this then, because I took this down from earlier in our conversation. So we'll switch gears for a second again. Although, wait, Jason's back, so we'll give him a moment. I know some people were asking about Salvini, and there's mixed feelings on him. Obviously, you know, on the surface level, he's talking about the right things, but there's still people in the chat saying he's a Zionist. But then there's other people saying, well, he has to play the game a little bit to get what he wants. Big subject, but do you have any quick notes on Salvini, misconceptions, or what people outside of Italy should know about him? Because we hear a lot about him here in America.
I can say that the people who were commenting that, they are both right. I mean, on a side, he is officially not an identitarian. Just don't think about him in that way. He is a civic nationalist. What does it mean? If immigrants behave well and integrate into our system, learn the language, follow the Italian rules, he is good. He doesn't have any problem with those. So with those with those immigrants who came legally in Italy, have all the documents, have integrated, and most of those, I must say, that are Romanians. So let's not forget they are Europeans as well. They speak a similar language. They come from a southeastern country. So it's not hard for them to integrate in Italy. Let's just say that. Apart from that, he has good ideas. He is still a politician who has to be part of the system. But even if he is part of the system, he is actually showing some kind of consciousness. He is trying to awaken some kind of consciousness into the Italian people, because you see, he tried to stop this NGO with Mrs. Rackete to come into our nation. He didn't manage that. Why? The whole lawyers, the whole justice system is against him. That's the problem. The whole justice system is against Italians. Every time that happens something against Italians, they do not care at all. What will happen, in my opinion? We will be the next ones after England to go outside of the European Union. He will be the first leader apart from England, of the Western world, to stop this enslavement to the European Union. Because the thing we are really tired of, we Italians, we are tired of being the slaves of the European Union. The European Union has destroyed us as a people, our economy, everything. In the 90s, we were the 4th richest country in the world for GDP. Now we are like the 8th or the 9th. We lost 5 positions. And all of those positions, that position is held just because of of North Italy, because it's industrialized. But the whole South Italy, the islands, they are not industrialized. We are as poor as, I don't know, as Armenia, for example. We have that kind of situation. What is Europe trying to do? He is trying to control us with this economical system, with this fiscal compact. We cannot be in debt. We cannot improve our economy. We cannot lower our taxes. We need to increase our taxes to the point we cannot buy bread anymore. And Italians are tired of it. All our people who studies, who takes bachelor's, master's, PhD, do you know where they go? They go outside of Italy. Not because Italy doesn't have the correct system for that, doesn't give the possibilities to them. It could give them those possibilities, but they are stopped by the European Union, because the European Union stops our economical growth. So we cannot invest into our nation. The bad things that happen, for example, into the importation-exportation field is that we, for example, we Sicilians, we are famous for being farmers. We produce lemons, oranges, every kind of fruit, vegetables, eggplants, for example, everything you can imagine. We produce that. We produce that for us and for Italy. What does the European Union? The European Union tells you, no, you can produce just, 200 kilograms of that kind of vegetables, because the other 200 kilograms of vegetables must be bought from non-European countries, for example, Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, and so on and on, because we need to help and improve their economical situation. But if you have a nation, and half Italy is based on farming, like Sicily, Sardinia, Calabria, and so on and on, we are based on agriculture. How can you tell a farmer to stop the production of, let's say, strawberries, apples, whatever it is, because we need to buy a part of it from the other countries? And if not from non-European countries, we need to buy them from other European countries. But we have our own economy. We cannot improve always the economy of other people. The European Union stopped, for example, in northern Italy, we produce a lot of milk. They stopped these entrepreneurs to produce milk. They said, no, you cannot produce 1,000 liters of milk. You have to produce half of that, because the other half has to be bought from Germany, let's say, because you have to have these importation-exportation pacts with us. So that's what happened. That's what happens. Farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, everybody in Italy is sick of this situation, because not only you have problem with that, but the people who remain in Italy, there are people who profit from this situation and tell you, look, if you want to have a job in my company, you have to work for like 5 euros per hour and not 10 euros per hour, because if you do not accept that, we are going to take an African to do your job. So when leftists say, immigrants do the jobs that you Europeans do not want to do anymore, it's not true. It's not that we do not want to work or to have these jobs. We do not want to be paid less and unfairly for these jobs. And leftists profit from all this manpower from Italy or from Southeast Asia. It's not that they are good towards them. Let's just say that, because they always called us racist, we discriminate others, but let's say things the way they are. They discriminate other ethnicities because they see other races just as manpower to be exploited. That's it. And they want us to become machines to be exploited the way they are. So this is not only an ethnic genocide, this is a cultural and a spiritual enslavement.
Well, can everybody hear me? Are the anti-whites going to allow me to talk? I mean, this tap episode has been wide open. The tap has been wide open, and we start getting rolling along. We're gonna have Ilenia back regularly. The anti-whites, I know, they obviously really don't like this combination. This
power levels are too high.
It's exactly, the power levels are just too high. They keep shutting me down. And what's interesting is I'm not even going to go to that subject again, because I think if I start talking about that subject again, who knows, maybe they'll shut it down. But let's jump over to these super chats because, as the great HB 2014 has pointed out, not only did we go into overdrive, ladies and gentlemen, but we have just gone over into double overdrive because we have such a fabulous guest, absolutely filled with verve and energy for white well-being, and we are very excited to have her with us. So let's get on to some of these fantastic super chats that we had soar into. And let me just say quickly, because the anti-whites, for as funny as it is, their efforts to censor us, and my guarantee, the guarantee of this community, that the harder you press down, and in fact, this is what I said on Two Going Free streams, this community of carbon, the more pressure you put on us, you don't get dust, you get diamonds. You go ahead and keep pushing with your censorship, and we will push that much harder in many different directions. We will appear in many different areas that you had not anticipated prior to that. In fact, I want you to know, anti-whites, those of you who are watching, fiddling with the technology that we are working on, that Western kind developed, by the way, fiddling on it. I have had people during this, and I haven't mentioned this before, I've had people during this live stream and in past live streams, but more so in this live stream. I think it's because we have the lovely Ilenia on the screen with us, is that people have sent me photographs of us on their televisions, anti-whites. They are streaming this live stream, watching us on their televisions, where you used to brainwash them, where you used to infect them with the mean pathogens of your ideology by way of those idiot boxes. Now they have become vessels for truth and healing, and that scares the hell out of you, and it should. And the reason why is because we are the dark clouds on your horizon. We are the lightning that is coming for you, that rides underneath those dark clouds. We are that entire horizon darkening around you. And for us, we are the blue skies over golden fields of a western sunrise. Know that, anti-whites. Know that when you see the lightnings, it rides on the rails of truth and justice. That is what you won't be able to stop anymore. That is what is lit in people's living rooms. No longer your lies, but the truth and the well-being of this movement of love and redemption for our people. We have NPC super chatting $19.99, writing, Jason, what are your sentiments on the late Dr. John Tanton? I knew very little about him. Also, is genetic engineering and AI going to make race less important if a black person can have a child infused with genes to make them white? Once I get through all of these super chats, if my guest and colleague would like to speak to that as well, I'll just briefly say no. It's not going to make any difference because it's nowhere near on the verge of something that is capable even for the wealthiest. What they can do today is they can select the strongest sperm and the strongest eggs for the wealthiest people on the planet because they can afford this to be done so that they can have the best children that they can have. But they cannot manipulate the genes yet. This is still somewhat of a pipe dream. And even when it reaches that level, it's not going to be at your local McDonald's. This is going to be available and quarantined by the wealthiest. We have millennia of breeding animals from the horse that roamed the fields and was as plain and inert as an animal could be, into sleek race horses, into powerful plow horses. We can, by way of choosing our mates with an eye toward a smarter, a healthier, a stronger future, we can, in just a matter of a couple of generations, capture a level of I won't say perfection, there's no perfection, but capture a level of achievement that heretofore has been unthinkable. So this idea that they're going to play with the genes is Star Trek. Naslin super chat, thank you very much for the super chat and the question. $10, thank you very much for this kind super chat. I believe the that beauty is objective and evolved out of necessity of European women to influence men due to the difficulties of winter, which in turn made our people so great. Well, it is also not just something that we have chosen for partners, but it is something that we make in the world, that we can honestly say, not only do we notice the beauty in our creations, but so do the other races of man who flock to our creations in awe, as I'm sure we would if there were another people that created something that we found to be truly magnificent relative to what we produced. Mrs. Horse, super chatting $4.99, not writing anything, but saying a lot with that $4.99 for the cause of white well-being. Thank you. Roy Danton, a hero with a princely super chat to the cause by way of entropy, $100. Thank you very much, Roy. Writing Ilenia in Germany, almost the entire environmentalist and animal welfare movement has been taken over by anti-whites.
That's true.
Is it the same thing?
That.
Okay. Is it the same thing in Italy? Do you have problems with wolves and bears? Let me see. Before you answer that, we also have a question. Actually, we have quite a few. So go ahead and answer that, and then we'll get back to because we don't want to keep you much longer. It is very late where you are. So go ahead and answer that question, please.
Yeah, the Greens, it's true that they have become leftists, complete leftists. So those people who care about the environment have been just taken by the leftist elite. For example, the Grüne in Germany, they are like the leftists. They are pro-immigration. They do all this pro-homosexuality propaganda. They are nothing but a liberal leftist. But on top of that, they say, oh, we need to protect the trees. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we need to protect the trees and the weather is getting warmer. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. How are you going to solve that? By taking millions of Africans. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, the Greens, which are called I Verdi in Italy, are completely the same. There is no difference with the Green Party of Germany. So the Green parties in Western Europe, at least, are completely leftist, liberal leftist.
Yeah, and how asinine a position to claim that you're worried about the environment, and then you're going to bring people from third world nations where their carbon footprint is zero because they don't have electricity and all of those other reasons, and you're going to bring them to Western civilization, and they're going to use they're going to increase their consumption thousands of times fold, using electricity, producing waste, driving cars, polluting the environment. So it's all that matters with all of these positions, ladies and gentlemen, as we've talked about before, is you look beyond those pretexts. Everything that comes out of their mouths is just a pretext to arrive at an anti-white conclusion. They want to protect the trees. When they say that, they're saying, how can we bilk the white population a little bit more for more of their dollars? How can we gain more control over their destiny to inflict more harm on them? When they say we've got to bring these people in because of X, Y, or Z, it's because bringing them in is going to change Western civilization into something that is uncomfortable for us and dangerous for us, as demonstrated. This is no longer something that we have to speculate about. It's demonstrated all over the West. And that's why in the middle of live streams, they silence certain live streamers. Timothy, super chatting with $10 by way of entropy as well. Thank you very much for the kind super chat. And his question is, what are your thoughts on Tom Kaczynski? He's running for president in 2020 at www.inthecon.com. Well, that's folks, if you're interested in Tom, Jared, George, and I have had him on. He was a fantastic guest. He's also been on PWR back when it was This Week on the Alt-Right. And you can find his campaign info apparently at www.endthecon.com. And perhaps we will have Tom on one of our shows, and we'll discuss his run for presidency. Thank you very much, Timothy, for the kind investment of $10 and your question. The Thin Red Line, super chatting over on Entropy with $20. Thank you very much for that investment. Ilenia, can you say something about the Roman mystery religion? And after you answer that, we'll get back to some more of these super chats that
I think maybe the super chatter missed the beginning. We were speaking a lot about that earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, but the point is that the word itself is mysteries. I cannot
Mysteries.
speak about mysteries. Okay, I mean, it's not something you just talk about. Oh yeah, let's have a speech about the mystery of Saturn or of Venus. It doesn't work like that. I can say that if you want to have more information about our religious esoteric group, if you are maybe Italo-American, for example, or Italo-Australian, and you feel the call, like you feel attached to your culture and traditions and want to know more about that, you can contact Pietas and they will put you in contact with me, since I'm the contact person for all those Italians abroad, living abroad, who still want to be part of the movement Pietas. So we can say to this person, just contact the page, it's Associazione Pietas, and they will put you into contact with me. So I can explain you something later through the chat, but about the mysteries, we cannot speak about the mysteries. Let's just forget that.
You have to be initiated into the mysteries.
Exactly.
You got it. Initiated into the mysteries. It's a mystery why my camera's not working. So I had to turn it off. And bear with me, I'm trying to be quiet. I'm keeping my mic open because the 2 times Jason got kicked off, I don't know if this is just a coincidence. It's when I muted my mic. It should have no bearing on Jason appearing on his own live stream, but I don't want to chance it, so I'm leaving my mic hot, ladies and gentlemen.
We're getting hot all over tonight. The temperature outside here in the nation's capital, Virginia, right outside the nation's capital, was a scorcher today. Not as hot as it's been, but we have a super chat from Preta Nova coming back from a little earlier with $5 this time. Thank you very much for that investment in white well-being. And he writes, and this, of course, is in response to your response, Ilenia, that if he's looking for a traditionalist woman, he won't be able to find one if he's not Italian. And he writes, I'm Italian and Sicilian from Philly. I'm learning the language, and my accent is near perfect. Are you sure I have no chance? Your answer is depressing.
Well, he can come to Italy and give it a try. If he's manly enough, maybe he will get it. Because Italian women like a very manly man who know how to behave like men, not effeminate, modern, globalist, leftist. This is not what they like. But this is not what, I mean, no woman outside of here likes that kind of, we call it soy boy, you know that?
Yes,
I mean, this terminology, nobody likes that. There was an interview I saw from a Dutch woman. She was interviewed and she said, no, I do not like to be with Dutch men because they are effeminate. That's why I go with foreigners. So first, these women push for feminism and say that white men are evil and oppress them. The moment that men become effeminate and passive enough, then they go with foreigners who come from nations whose culture doesn't respect women at all. And we know that it's not discrimination if I say that in Islam, women are treated like animals, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, well, that's just an observation. Women have more power in Western civilization, been given more rights by white men, ladies and gentlemen, than any other group of people on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Final super chat. Alt Fit back again with 10 more pounds. Thank you very much for the second super chat. A question for the Italian lady. What is going on with Cosa Nostra of Sicily? They were fighting the imported Somalian gangs. Now they seem to have stopped. Is this true? Let me quickly say also to this idea in the United States that the Italian mafia was Italian. It was made Italian
by Hollywood.
Yes, it was made Italian in the movies, ladies and gentlemen. Regrettably, a lot of the Italian immigrants to the country, and there were also Irish immigrants to the country, were swept up into these criminal cartels to work as the henchmen, the people on the lowest rungs. I just simply look into the identities of those who ran the so-called Italian mafia. And you'll find a lot of similar identities to those who ran and run the Russian mafia. Of course, we're not going to talk about them because the channel will immediately be shut down. But a question, the Casa Nostra, are they fighting the Somalian gangs? Have they given up?
Where actually this thing, to think that mafia actually fights against immigrants, it's pretty much false. Mafia supports immigration because they can get money from that. Let's not forget that mafia never did something positive. I mean, mafia has a long history. In the 19th century, it was not like it is nowadays. But I think we need another 1 hour, 2 hours of speeches to speak about that. Briefly saying, mafia was never worked for the good of the people. Never. They didn't fight against Somalians because they wanted to fight them because they are immigrants. They did that just because of economical interest, because they sold drugs and they also sell drugs. So maybe they were selling drugs in their areas, and that's what disturbed them. It's not that they were some kind of nationalist heroes that wanted to save us. Let's just not forget that, okay? They are criminals. That's it.
Yeah, very well said. And that's that you wouldn't even need to know anything on the ground to realize that organized crime is not going to fight some nationalistic heroic battle. It's going to be purely for their self-interest, and therefore what you just said, Ilenia, that there's clearly some sort of a turf war going on if they're at war with these border crossers, which we have to be increasingly careful since the ADL has paired up with YouTube. Nothing untoward about that, but we have gone well over. Now, this is actually overdrive number 3, so we're going to have to wrap things up. We don't want to keep Ilenia up all night long, but it's been a fantastic show. Absolutely going to have you back again. This was really a tap that was wide open, very exciting, and we tapped into some very deep subjects today as well. I'll just keep doing that, folks. And so if we could get some final thoughts, anything else that you'd like to say, Ilenia, about what you're doing, what you're working on, any final thoughts about what was said here tonight, and where people can find you, be fantastic, please.
Well, I want to tell people that the most important thing right now is to build communities. So if you live in a place and you are speaking with people online who have the same thoughts that you have, who have the same ideals, don't just let the thing be an online thing. Build a community, build a network. We are many. We are not a few people. We are not hundreds of people. We are millions of people in Europe, in America, in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa, everywhere. We are everywhere. We cannot be afraid anymore of speaking the truth, and we cannot be afraid of hiding ourselves. So show your face, say the truth, build communities, build strong communities, because in the end, that's what our enemies do. They build communities, they become strong, they get power, they get the economic resources, and they get to the top of the society. We need to destroy that top of the society that is destroying the beautiful diversity of Europe and of the world, generally speaking. Because in the end, they want to turn all of us into machines, into ruthless people who live just to do money. Don't fall for that propaganda. Don't fall for all those pictures who show happy, mixed families, because we know by statistics that all those families will end up with divorce, with sexual harassment, with violence, with murder. We know that. Don't fall for the propaganda. Do you have any doubt? Contact people like me, like Jared, like Jason. Contact people like us. Get in touch with us. If you want to get in touch with us, with the association Pietas, contact the page, and then they will give you the contact to get in touch with me. We have a WhatsApp group for people in the United States that are interested in getting initiated into the Roman cults. So if you are interested in that, if you want to know more about that, contact us. If you are more interested into talking about the situation of immigrants in Italy and in Sicily. Since the 10th of August, we are having this meeting. You can contact the page Circolo Aleteia Sicilia. We are going to give you all the information you need. We can all speak English, and some of us can also speak German. So if you have any doubt, any question, you can contact us privately, and we can speak later about that. But don't lose hope. Don't think that you are alone. Build communities. That's the most important thing that I can say. In these times, most importantly, we need that.
This is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get a big round of applause for Ilenia today. She has been absolutely brilliant and on fire. There's something special about seeing a white woman get fired up. I remember I was at a meeting many years ago now, just a white positive sphere meeting, no specific group, but there was a large group of people, and there's a woman, I can't remember which Eastern European country she was from, but she became absolutely impassioned over the cause of our people, and it was thrilling to feel. And so thank you all indeed. Fantastic. Jared, where can people find you? What are you working on? What's coming up next, brother?
Well, for Ilenia, do make sure that you visit her pages, Nordic Beauty and Protect Beauty, on Facebook. Yes. And we have, in the links of this show, we'll have her links to where you can find her. I've also been backing these up on my BitChute, by the way. We talked about censorship before, Ilenia, I don't know if you know, but I had a channel that was destroyed by YouTube on June 5th with no prior warning. So now I'm back with this, just with my name, Jared George, and anyone seeing me in the chat. And if you're not subscribed, please do click my the blue name, so you'll be taken to my channel and you can subscribe to what I'm doing now, and visit my site, thegreatorder.com. That's where I have that fact sheet that I mentioned before. I archive, excuse me, all of these shows and videos that I do, all of the articles, everything going on, all goes through there, all of my contact. I do want to say, lovely Porridge of Australia and I are doing this video contest. And Ilenia, I could tell you a little more about this after the show or when we email. It might be the first time you're hearing about it, but we put out a call to our community around the world, and it's for content creators and new content creators. Some people are talking about forming teams and making videos, just a 5-minute video. If you were given the opportunity to play a video to the whole world, especially the white world around the world, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, everywhere, right? Europe, North America, of making our case, how would you do it in just a short 5-minute video? And this was your last chance. You'd be censored after this. We've already had some big names agree to do it. Way of the World is doing it. Verbo Tempestus is doing it. My co-host Jason here is doing it. And it's an October 15th deadline, so we gave people a few months. And there's a little cash prize. But the most important thing is that we'll have a cash prize for voting on what people think is the most effective. But we'll have a library of videos that we can use. Some of it we can share with normies. That's the whole thing. We're supposed to use it as outreach. So please do visit that. I'm going to put the link in the description, the chat. And also, I just want to say tonight, if you're in the States and can still stay up, I'm going to be on the White Art Collective tonight, celebrating this special episode, celebrating the new White People's Quarterly magazine. I wrote a new poem for that, and I will be reciting that poem tonight on White Art Collective's Saturday night live stream. The stream starts at about 9 Eastern. I'll be joining at about 9:30 Eastern. And with that, I'll hand it to Jason to take us out. Ilenia, thank you again, and I hope we get to speak to you soon.
Thank you very much.
I thank you, good sir, and I thank you, Ilenia. This has been a coruscating, truly coruscating conversation tonight. Triple overdrive, very exciting. Thank you all for being here in the chat. Everyone who participated, thank you all who can only watch in the replay for being a part of this community as well. A big heartwarming thank you to all of you for your munificence, those who are sharing ideas, time, efforts, training, and certainly your dollars, whatever currency you might be donating in. It means so much to us. Every single one of those dollars, every single one of those pennies goes toward the cause of white well-being. None of them are used, not a single penny, on anything other than that. So we thank you deeply. And not only that, as I've said before, we do everything a la Silhouette. So we make every dollar go much further than others can normally do. So I want to acknowledge a few people I saw in the audience today. I saw Alexis there today. I saw Rick in the crowd. Mary Moon was here. Great to see you. White Rose and also Gold Medal were both here today. Great to see you both. Ready to Snap was here. I think you're probably ready to snap as the anti-whites kept shutting down my link to this live stream. But thank you all. A big thank you to our intrepid moderators. Spartan was here. Phoenix was here. HB was here. And of course, the lead moderator of all moderators, the biggest sacrificer of all sacrificers, Syrup, was here. Thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is only the beginning of the kind of work that Jared and George and I are going to continue making for you all. It will continue to be a glorious ride with us as we climb the mountain toward that sunrise that gleams like the branches of a crown over the peak. And that is where we will find you. We will see you all next time here on the After Party.